Mr. Speaker, rather than a point of order, actually, is to seek your direction on a matter that, if not arrested, will soon lead us into a stalemate between us and the colleagues in the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, Sam, occasionally, when I'm not in the chamber, I do follow proceedings of what happens in the Assembly, especially when they are debating bills that have emanated from the Senate. If I'm not wrong, Mr. Speaker, this is the second bill in this session that the Assembly has negated at the second reading stage. Mr. Speaker, and I have said this even to our colleagues on the minority side many times, that unless a bill is fatally flawed ab initio, it is an abuse of legislative procedure to negate any bill at second reading. Mr. Speaker, because I have seen bills that come to this House, and while the context and the overall body of what that bill seeks to do may not be what members intend, but because of our very rigorous procedures of lawmaking, Mr. Speaker, including second reading and eventually in the committee of the whole, you clean it up and conform it to provisions of the Constitution. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, given that this is a second bill where the House has considered, and particularly this bill, Mr. Speaker, there is a history to this bill. This bill has been in the corridors of Parliament for over 10 years, Mr. Speaker. We have considered it severally. In fact, I have lost count of the number of times that Senate has sent this bill to the National Assembly, and it has been returned, Mr. Speaker. In fact, much as there is progress to report, because previously it used to be left to gather dust in the shelves of the Assembly. This time they went all the way to second reading. Perhaps you need to establish procedure, Mr. Speaker, between you and your colleague, the Speaker of the National Assembly, on how to consider our bills. Because, Mr. Speaker, we receive many bills from the Assembly side as well. And there are many things which, for one reason or the other, we hold a different view on how they perceive it. But I find it to be a smack in the face of a smack on the face of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, when you negate a bill at second reading and call for mediation. It's an abuse of legislative mandate, and as leaders in this House, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish, because in a bicameral relation, our main link between us and the Assembly is you, Mr. Speaker, that you register our displeasure with the leadership of the Assembly through their Speaker on how they are treating our bills, Mr. Speaker. It is my considered view that a bill should be considered to the final stage, then we can have a proper mediation, Mr. Speaker, of how they hold different views on certain provisions. But to conclude on it at second reading, Mr. Speaker, is not fair to this House. And it's a matter for which I'm inviting you to have a conversation with your counterpart, the Speaker of the lower house. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Indeed, your concerns are valid, and I'll take it up with my counterpart in the National Assembly. However, if you listen to my earlier communication on co-sponsorship, co-sponsorship is one of the ways that we can employ to avoid scenarios such as this. Because one, in as much as the bill is considered extremely important by the Senate, the National Assembly may not necessarily feel the spirit behind that bill. But if it's developed with certain co-sponsors in the National Assembly, those naturally becomes our ambassadors, and they can make a case for and on behalf of the Senate, because then they will feel the spirit behind this bill. Otherwise, I will take it up, and we want to hope that this may be the last bill to collapse at the second reading in the National Assembly. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 4, petitions.
The Chairperson of Standing Committee on Finance and Budget.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a petition regarding regulation of credit profession that was submitted by CCP Mokaya Magembi Bernard. Mr. Speaker, sir,